That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there. There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla.
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that big one.
Hey everybody, welcome into the BAM Pod. This is Big Ed, your host, and I'm on this evening's show. We have Fred Roumbanis on, and I'll tell you what, there was only one couple issues with this. Is Fred lives in kind of a remote area, so some of this was really kind of scratchy. Kind of listen through it. It does clear up again and get a little better. We did lose a little bit of the interview, but for the most part, it ended up being a good show. Sorry we didn't get all of it. It's just hard to deal with, the phone sometimes. So, but yeah, this is a good show. And Fred and I have known each other for a while, so we just kind of kick back, talk about a bunch of bass fishing, a bunch of different things, and hope you enjoy the show. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll get started right about now. Hey everybody, welcome into the BAM Pod. This is Big Ed, your host, and I have got you a heck of a guest tonight. We're going to be talking to Mr. Fred Roumbanis, Boom Boom himself, coming all the way from Arkansas. He'll be on, we're going to be talking a whole bunch about different fishing styles and different things. So Fred, welcome into the show, man.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey man, no problem. I appreciate you coming on, spending the time to do it. And, yeah, we're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff today. This is a really cool opportunity for me because I know you come from the West Coast, that we've fished out here before. We've done a lot of stuff, and now you're back east. You've been back there for a while. You were in Oklahoma, now you're in Arkansas. And you're fishing the big tours back there, and so it's a great deal to kind of have that nice transition and know where you kind of grew up here fishing, how it is in the West, how it is out there, what the difference is. And, we definitely want to talk about that because it's real interesting to have someone that knows, the waterways out here so well and the waterways back there now is the way you do. So I think this should be a good show for us.
Yeah, man, it's definitely different. It's a different deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because I recently made it to, we were out at ICAST there and we got to fish some of those lakes out there, and you see all these things on TV. You see the Tohos and all these Okeechobees and all that, and you see that, and you don't know that these guys are fishing in 2 inches of water. I mean, it's I've never seen it. I've never seen where you're all of a sudden you're just in Florida, and it's like every waterway we went to fish was, even the ocean when we went out to the bay and fish camp and all that. It's like, are you kidding me? We're sitting in like 3 feet of water the whole day. Every day, everything we were doing was 3 feet of water, whether it was Toho or it was one of the other lakes. I mean, it's like deep water was 8. And and we're so used to out here, where you're fishing, Oroville, Shasta, and you're 150.
Oh, yeah.
Power poles mean nothing. Power poles.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because even, I grew up fishing mostly the California Delta, and even the Delta, I mean, shallow on the Delta, it's still 2.5 foot. You know what I mean? Like you just where I live here now at Lake Darnell, fish is kind of like the Delta where I could throw frogs and swim jigs and punch and do all these fun things. But I'm doing them in like less than a foot of water. And it's hard to even imagine these fish can be that shallow. But like you said, Lake Shasta, Oroville, I mean, I would consider myself a shallow water fisherman in general, but shallow there was like 8 foot or less. It wasn't like a foot or less. So yeah, it's a whole different deal, and understanding that fish can be that shallow and big ones was actually one of the struggles I had when I first came out this way.
Yeah, it's crazy because, like you say, I was actually watching. I was thrown. We were on Toho and we were fishing, and I'm looking over, and this guy, the guy I was with was standing there, and he goes, "Oh, there's a bass right there. You can see him." And I'm like, "What do you mean you can see him?" He's like, "Well, see the spine sitting out of the water right there? He's sunning himself." And literally there's a bass sitting out of the water, and you're just, yeah, he's in maybe 4 or 5 inches of water. Cast over that way. What?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, you'll see in certain situations when they spawn, especially here, we get a lot of water fluctuation, but those fish, when they commit to spawn, they're going to stay. Like Delta, the tide comes out, they just kind of roll with it, but it's a constant flow of ingoing, outgoing tide. They're kind of conditioned to spawn that way. But here it's like the water's, it's just unpredictable. So if they lock in the spawn, they're going to finish their deal. And a lot of times I'll just look for fins sticking out of the water and flip at them, and they big old mud swirl and whack, they got it, you know. Very easy, very aggressive, but just understanding how shallow you got to be. I've done a lot of tricks to modify the ways I can get shallower and fish shallower, that, you know, I didn't have to do out west. And so that was kind of a learning curve for me. You know, granted, I mean, you know, like a Clear Lake, some of my better spawn tournaments up there, I was catching them at 6 foot, 8 foot of water on beds. You know, if there wasn't too bad of an algae bloom at the time. But I mean, you know, those were where the big ones are. Here, you got to make sure you look shallow.
Yeah, and like you said, when you're talking 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, you know, rather than feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't tell you the last time I was fishing out west where I was just, if you look behind me, it was just a big mud spill. You know, my boat's just kicking up mud. I mean, you just don't really do that out west. You're usually sitting in, you know, depth.
right.
Where you don't have to, like, you can just get on pad and go, as long as you're not in a no wake zone or something. But yeah.
No, it's definitely different waters, for sure back there. You know, that kind of leads us in. I wanted to kind of kick off and talk about a little bit of this whole, you know, let's talk about some of the way we're fishing right now. You know, we've got summer right now, and then within a month and a half, we're going to have this fall transition starting. You know, it's going to be September 21st, I think is the first. Yeah. September 21st, first day of fall. And it seems like, oh, that's so far away. It's not, it's month, you know, it's 27 days or something like that now. So, you know, we're heading into fall. You know, talk a little bit about you know, what you're basically going to start doing, you know, the last part of the summer and into the fall. What's, you know, the transition from summer into that fall patterns. This is a good time to start talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of things happen. You know, obviously right now, I mean, it's just blistering hot out. Here we have a 94-degree day, and it's heat index of 105. I'm sure out there it's probably like 120. I don't know, but you know, it's hot. Where do the fish go? They're going to go where the cooler oxygen is. They're going to go where the bait's at. They're going to stay down, you know, typically in that cooler water. And it's very similar here in those situations. But as those colder nights, you know, you get a good week of cool nights. A lot of these lakes out here, they start turning over. You know, the cooler water will start coming up to the surface, brings the bait fish up to the surface, and really mixes up that thermocline. And you get back into some of these pockets, and you see nothing but balls of shad. The fish are back there feasting, and really, it's just a matter of presentation and getting in where the bait is. And you're going to start catching a lot of fish. So fall to me is always one of my favorite times to fish. I wish we had more tournaments in the fall, because I like it. You pick up a topwater bait and go. I know out west, man, when it started cooling down, you get up there with a jerk bait, and then even the heat of the day, get a super spook or, you know, a big, you know, I don't know, little stick topwater bait or something, and just start chucking it over windy, breezy points, and you're going to catch a lot of big fish.
Right. You know, I think one biggest thing that's a difference between here and there right now is the fact, you know, you actually have water in your lakes and we have none. So
yeah, well, that we do get a little more rain. I feel bad for you guys. I actually, when I flew out there, I just moved my mom back from California. We just moved her here to Arkansas a couple weeks back, and it made me pretty sad when I flew over Folsom and just saw how little water was in that lake. I can't imagine. Like, I really feel for you guys out there, because
it's not even a lake anymore.
Sad. I mean,
That's just puddles. That's just,
yeah. I mean,
those are just connected.
Gosh,
that's all there really is anymore.
That's a rough. Yeah.
You know, it's
I really pray for you guys
living out here in the West, where, you know, our forests are on fire, our water, there's no water in the lakes, you know, whatever. Gotta love California.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys will get some good rain here soon.
But yeah,
gosh, yeah.
You know, kind of talking about that fall, you talk about the top water is going to start turning back on, and some of the things right now, you know, there's, you know, out here where I have a friend that moved back east again too. And you know, he's talking about some of the ways you fish out here compared to out there. And there are a lot of the different tactics and a lot of the different techniques that that kind of move on and come up, you know, still, you know, the drop shots and the rip bait and things like that. They all work. But one of the things that I noticed and he talked about too was colors. From here to there, he's like, dude, I've got to throw everything away I've ever used in California because now out there I can't. They don't even work. You have to. What is the biggest thing that you noticed when you moved out that way? That something that is just a true statement?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, I know out west, and maybe it's just, we had such clear water out there. We fished, where you could see them in 10 foot of water or whatever. You got to be more finicky, I always messed with Aaron Martins, and because he always had to count the flakes in his robo worms or whatever, make sure it was perfect. But it's kind of true. I mean, out west, it just seemed like you had to be a little more finicky. That's why I think you see a lot of success from Western anglers coming out this way, is because they pay attention to that detail where most guys don't. And granted, like you said, some of the colors don't work that great. Some of the baits don't work that great. They like the Bubba baits here. You might catch them out there on a regular trick worm. Well, out here it's the super Magnum trick worms. They like that thicker Bubba baits and brush piles. And out west, I never really fished brush piles. That's another thing. Out here, it's like brush piles is a huge deal, especially this time of year. I mean, it's all about locating them, and thank goodness I've got extremely good at electronics with Garmin. I can see them and see the fish in the brush piles and determine their attitudes with that, but with the live scope. But yeah, I mean, technique wise, yeah, there's a lot, but I'll tell you, we've kind of brought some of that little finesse stuff into this Bubba territory. And my kid especially, it may not win the tournaments I fish, but for my kid's youth stuff that he does, he's last year he was 13 years old, and him and his partner won the Angler of the Year title, basically finesse fishing all year long on bodies of water where you don't finesse fish. So I thought that was a really neat deal. They beat kids up to 18 years old.
Go on with this. I don't want you to get him. I don't want you to give all his stuff away.
Yeah, nah, he's not here right now. He's at school.
Okay.
Mom was picking him up.
All right.
But I mean, no, he's gotten better at that. It was more just that was where his talent was. Now he's getting to the point where he doesn't want to do anything but throw a big crankbait or, heavy flipping. So he's getting better at it. But, we started off with the finesse. I think that's a great route for, kids that are getting into it, just because you get a lot of bites that way. But he got so good at it that I just had one of my sponsors say he's one of the best drop shotters I've ever seen. So I was like, kind of tickled. I was like, yeah, I'd have to agree.
That's awesome, because I don't necessarily know you to be a drop shotter. I've always known you to be more of a power guy.
Oh, dude, it's hard for me to pick up the spinning stuff, but I will do it. I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it. But if I can pick up, a flipping stick or a football head jig or, big crankbait or, of course, a frog or swim bait, I mean, those are going to be where my strengths lie. And, one of the things that I did out west that I've carried out here, and it still works, you just don't see me doing a lot, and it's throwing a spinnerbait. I love a spinnerbait.
Right.
And I probably got one of the biggest spinnerbait collections, because I'm constantly tinkering with them and I used to make spinnerbait. Right. I think back when I lived out there was a company called Viper, went to VPR, and then they didn't last very long, sold to World Waters or something. But I was actually the guy building those spinnerbaits for guys like Gary Dobbins and so forth. So some of those tournaments he won, I think he won 3 out of 5 weeks on spinnerbaits I made him.
Wow.
I couldn't catch him like he did, but he won. So
hey, I mean, as long as you were there and he cut you some money, you're good, right?
Yeah, no, I got my $7 an hour working for a company making spinnerbaits.
Yeah, exactly.
Until I played hooky, went snowboarding and broke my thumb, and I couldn't make them fast enough. It's the only job I ever got fired from, actually.
See what happens. You get playing around out here. You gotta go out. That's why you gotta get out of the West Coast. There ain't no snowboarding in Arkansas. That's for darn sure.
No, there's no snowboarding. Well, actually, this year we had snow and ice, and it was unbelievable. For like a week, we had like thick snow in our yard, and we have kind of a hill, so we were sledding down it and this and that, and we were doing country.
I was gonna say
you have to go back to
hooking up the riding lawnmower and pulling everybody around.
Yeah. Oh, dude, we did side by side, towing people in tubes. We had a excavator that was going around in circles with a rope on it. We were just flinging people around with it. I mean, it's just fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll send you a picture. I'm gonna look through my photos and send you a picture while we're doing this.
Yeah, that's the. I guess we got to get back to fishing at some point. But yeah, so
I know, right?
so we're talking a little bit about the, that transition. You get into those brush piles and that sort of thing too. And how do we? It is interesting because picking those apart and sticking with those. That's one of the things that I saw in Florida, and I talked to a couple of the guys that I was fishing with, and they were just like, "Oh no, I'll stick on these brush piles. They'll find 5 of them, and they'll stay on them all day long." And again, we do have brush piles here. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, we don't spend, I think, the same amount of time that they do back there. What is it that because when I saw, I was like, there was like 4 or 5 sticks sticking up, and it's like, oh yeah, you just sit on these and they just here and they just load up. So is that what happens? I mean, these fish just kind of come in and out of these brush piles, or is it, what really is there for, when you're deciding to fish a brush pile, and how can I apply that out here, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess guys are starting to put them in Clear Lake, but I don't remember them when we were out there at all. So when I first came to Oklahoma, the first tournament I fished up there was Grand Lake, and dude, I got my tail stomped. I mean, it was horrible. And Mike McClellan was throwing the jig, just basically bombing it in the middle of brush piles. And I think he won that elite by like 16 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was insane. So, yeah, I was like, dude, I got to learn how to do this. First, I got to learn how to find them, and before it was harder to find them because I didn't have side imaging at the time either. So it was basically going over the top, and then when am I looking at fish, or is that a brush pile, and then marking it and then going back and throwing on it. You slowly start figuring it out. But the deal with brush pile is when that water gets warm, especially hot and stagnant, dude, they go in it. It's covered, they sit in it. And if you ever look at like a Bass Pro Shop fish tank, like one little piece of cover is basically a brush pile, and you see how many fish layer up in that brush pile. Now with the forward imaging live scope, you can literally, with side imaging, I'll idle around, I'll find one, I'll mark it on my graph, just touch it, and it pops up a waypoint, tree, and I get up on my shoulder, I point at that tree with live scope, and you see the fish in it. And now you're throwing, I like personally to throw a little crankbait over the top, because with a forward-facing sonar, I can throw that crankbait, get an idea how deep it is first, and grab the right crankbait accordingly. Usually, if they're in 6 to 8 foot of water, which is a lot of brush piles out here. Now, granted, 6 to 8 foot of water is deep out here. Remember that. Not deep for you guys, but I will take my square bill and run it over the top. And the largemouth will tend to come up and chase it. That's when you know what they are. And grab it, of course, if you can kind of get it hung in there, just shake and pop it free, you'll catch them. And then the very next thing I do is on that brush pile, I take a big jig with a big feature trailer, and I just flip it right in the middle. And basically, like you're punching Matson on the Delta, you're punching heavy weight, making that reaction go in. It's the same thing, you're just doing it underwater. So you want to get a reaction out of those fish. But that's how, that's pretty how I fish brush piles. Now, the deeper, brush piles, then I have to, try different things. Sometimes, like at Toledo Bend, I would catch them at about 15 foot water in brush piles, and I was taking a 1 ounce football head jig and literally putting the swim bait on the back, swimming it over the brush pile, catching them on the top like that over the brush piles, and then also just basically punching through the brush pile and holding on and catching them. But when that happens, you do lose some fish too.
Right.
To keep a jig that big down that deep at the control, you have to do a lighter line. So, it's I've gone down to as light as 15 pound, and I've broken off some giants doing it, but I've caught giants doing it. So, I like to stick with 17 if I can get away with it. But when those brush piles get deeper, you got to go a little lighter line or go braid or fluoro leader. And that's another trick, a lot of guys are trying to do too. Anything that you contact the bottom with, go braid to fluoro. You're reeling in horizontal, but you don't ever, make contact with the bottom. Just go straight fluorocarbon. Top water, of course, pours in it and it floats. Or braid, or straight braid. Yeah.
Well, that's so basically, targeting those with some just bait fish, crawdad, just mixing it up with a bunch of different things. And I'm guessing, spinner baits through there.
Crawdads are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, when you catch one, you always examine them a little bit. You can tell if they're you know, if their teeth are super sharp and stuff, they're feeding on shad that are coming by, you know, and just little things like that, or if they're, you know, spitting out shad. But again, with the technology we got, it just makes everything so much easier because you can see the balls of shad. Right now, going back to that transition, summer to fall, that is the biggest player there is looking for the bait fish. And you can literally sit there on top of the bait and watch them, I call it mushroom eyes. They literally into a mushroom and you'll see a little dot underneath, and that's the bass just punching the shad and eating them. And you start, you know, messing around with that and getting your bait in that strike zone. It doesn't matter what you're doing. That bass is going to hit it. So once they get in that feeding mode, they're going to eat.
Right.
And that's, I would like you follow you. I haven't been there in, I don't even know, 5-6 years. And I took a sponsor fishing and took the guys from Six Gill, my real sponsor, fishing, and I had to figure them out quick. And we found them basically in about 6 to 8 foot of water, just like I was saying, chasing balls of bait. We were just throwing the balls of bait at them. So, and we figured it really didn't matter at that point. I mean, I would even throw a swamp and stuff and then catch them. So, I mean, it just didn't matter. Once you got around them, you can catch them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a pivotal time. I mean, you know, you talk about this, you know, and it's crazy because right now, you know, most guys who are just going out, tournament season's pretty much over for, you know, except for now we're kind of ramping up into the championships and we're running into that. You actually said you have one more in Detroit you have, and then you don't kind of the way
I've got Detroit, and then I call
you're going to make anything.
So I've got Detroit, you know, I'll be leaving the next week. And right when I get back, I got my first cup event, cup that I qualified for. So other than that, I think I'm done for the year. There might be a few little charity events, and I got some deal doing some Major League Baseball players and stuff like that to the Major League Fishing Anglers Association. But other than that, I mean, I'm pretty much, start working on sponsors for next year, start getting the boat ordered, you know, getting all the preparation. It takes a long time. And when the season goes by like it has, man, that's a lot of work for the tournament. I'm ready to start again. So.
Yeah, definitely. This is when you, like you said, this is when you start ramping up for everything. I know, you know, we just had ICAST and that was out there and a bunch of guys out there doing the same thing, you know, working sponsors, you know, hey, we got to work this event, got to be there. And, you know, this is that time of year when everybody's got to try to renew. Everybody's trying, and it was a tough year last year, and this year I'm sure it's going to be the same. There's going to probably be some new criteria everybody's looking for, and you know, the social media thing, you know, making sure that's covered, making sure everything's, you know, there's just so much to it anymore. It's not like it used to be. You know, it's you've got to really be on your game on the marketing side so much now.
Yeah, on and off the water. It's incredible. Like, I mean, I feel bad because I almost missed your call right now because I live kind of off the grid and I got a metal building. So if I don't phone outside or get good reception, I miss a lot of calls. That's not good. It's not what you want in this industry. It's how I want to live, but it's not what you want. So I had an interview earlier today. I tried calling, he didn't call. He did call, just didn't show up my phone. There's little things like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't let that happen. So yeah, definitely working the business side of it. Social media is such a huge platform right now. I know I'm personally behind the times with YouTube. I do a lot of YouTube videos, but not for my own channel or anything like that. I do it for other people, and I need to probably step up that side of the game. But until I get good Wi-Fi, it just takes too long to download anything. So I'm like, yeah, I'll work on that during the stop season. See if we can train my oldest son to edit some videos. I always run cameras, and I always got good stuff, and I just send those off to sponsors and let them do what they want with them. So.
Yeah, it's tough too. I mean, you know, you've got to there's a lot of work to YouTube. You know, there's a lot of work in their editing that, you know, and if you're not great at it, if you're not, I mean, I don't even want to say great at it. If you're not, you know, decent about it and really stay on top of it,
yeah.
It's so daunting. You know, you end up just getting way behind. Trust me, I do it a lot and I get way behind quick. It just like you drop the ball 1 week and it's just like,
We have a process that we call simple price, simple process. And what that means is we take our lowest and best price and we post it on every single car. There's no back and forth. And by simple process, what that means is when you meet somebody, They can handle every aspect of what you do in your card transaction buying experience from beginning to end.
You guys have split the series now, but what you have with the Apex out there, to me, I mean, I was talking to Jared Littner, and I think he's doing them, and I think it'd be awesome. I mean, that's just a cool tour. It's a great way to do it, and showcasing your best anglers out there, and it's a true qualification from what I get out of it. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. But but I look at that and I wonder how many guys like yourself it would have retained. I'm not saying that people shouldn't leave California to go fish back there, because it's, if you're going to make a career out of this, you really have to be fishing either that MLF or the Bassmaster. I mean, there's really nothing in between, and those two are the top, out there. This, I'm hoping that this starts to rival that within, 5 or 6 years. I'd really love to see the Apex become something that's, very much competitive with what they have done. Will it ever be a Bassmaster? It would take a long time for that to happen. I mean, Bassmasters just, they are what they are. But the MLF, like you're saying, you're fishing the MLF. I know you fished both of them. Which have you liked the way this has gone?
Dude, I love it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I fished the Bassmaster Elite Series for 16 years full time, and we were promised stuff first year that never happened, and we just kept riding this high entry, low payout, kind of thing for years and years. For great exposure, you just didn't look like you're winning money. It just wasn't. It was what can you get? What can you get for sponsorship? How can you get paid to do this? And obviously it gives the platform to be on ESPN, give us magazine cover, you give a ton of exposure. So it was awesome. Major League came along, and we've got it on 3 different channel networks, but between Discovery, CBS, and Outdoor Channel, and I think they're even doing some other stuff, maybe WFN or something. I don't know where the rebroadcasts go, but I mean, get that much more exposure on the television side, and then the Cup events, and they're bringing in sponsors. And they're actually, I can't say for myself, but they're getting some guys that didn't have those bigger sponsors and titles. They're actually helping them get those sponsors, which I think is pretty cool. So they're looking after the anglers. But again, when we did that, we rose the bar, and then what did Bassmaster do? They rose it. So mission accomplished. Some guys went back to back. They like the 5-fish format. I personally will fish either way. I'm thinking next year fishing the. I don't want to ever lose my spot on the Bass Pro Tour because I love with it. But I was also thinking of possibly, if it works out the schedule, I would do the Big Five as well, which is the Pro Tour. So basically, what used to be the FLW Tour is now the Big Five, the Pro Tour. So I would do that and the Bass Pro Tour. So I'd mix up the 5-fish limits. In a tournament I fish, it's hard for me to pick up the swim bait all day for frog because you got to catch fish nonstop. And one thing I can tell you, until somebody's actually fished this style where you have a live sport tracker, knowing where you got it all times, it reminded me of playing high school football. You get those little breaks, 15-minute breaks, kind of like going in for half, knowing where your result is, where you're at. How are you going to gain composure and put this back together, try to make that cut? Those little breaks are awesome, but also it's so intense. At the end of every day of competition, I am so much more worn out than if I didn't know where I stood all day and just fish for 5 fish. I go back and fish for 5-fish limit. I jumped to the Toyota Series out here in my backyard, and it was so relaxed, so fun, because it was like I didn't have that pressure knowing I'm like 50th place right now. I mean, it was 10 o'clock before I caught my first pass. I still ended up 7th in the whole tournament. So it was like, had I known I was 50th at that moment, I probably would not moved all the way up. I probably would just spun myself out. So there's 2 sides of it. It's like nonstop competitive. It's crazy. It's really fun when you're doing well, and you're just flat dead. At the end of the day, you're so beat, relaxing, but you're still fishing hard for 5 fish. So it's just both ways, and I think you're going to see a lot of guys try to fish both sports next year. They're not allowing they're going to always mix up schedules. You're never going to see the guy fish the elite or the fish. I can see that. Guys, this and back out 68. Like I said, Jared Littner's talking about it. So, I don't have many ties as far as living out there anymore. But who knows? Maybe one day I'll jump in if I can.
So we were just talking about the four, you're actually one of the first guys that's talked about that, talking about the different, the difference between the five fish and the always knowing where you're at. I mean, I guess I don't want to say, simplify it too much, but ignorance is bliss sometimes. You can actually relax a little bit. You can target, hey, I know I should probably be 15 to 18 pounds today. And if I'm not catching that, then you can, kind of change up how you're going to change up. But not, like you said, knowing that all of a sudden it's like, God, I'm sitting in 50th place and I've got 17 fish and that means nothing right now. That there's a lot of pressure to that.
Yeah, it's horrible. You might have a 22 limit. It doesn't matter. You're gonna keep catching them. I mean, that's the. It makes. I think and I'm just looking at statistics here and observing. But the guys that fish both the Bass Pro Tour and the Pro Tour, the five fish limit tour with Major League Fishing, the guys that fish the Bass Pro Tour that went over and fished at 5 of the 10 at the title championship were our guys. So everybody a little bit better angler because you're fighting for the holes that you're not getting hit, adjusting, and you're constantly making quicker adjustments. And even I wish I knew what I knew now, but days when I was catching big bags on frog. It's clearly like we're only fishing that 20-minute window, but I'm throwing a frog all day. To be doing other things and knowing to do other things those times, then going to my strength in that window of opportunity. But those are all little things that you start learning when you're here Sport Tracker. And I would encourage everybody to watch our stuff live because you'll start observing and you'll hear Marty Stone, you'll hear a lot of guys talking about, the moon and the pipe, the seed times, and there's a lot to it. And I'm really starting to become a believer in it. And because you'll notice it doesn't matter where we're at, like if you're not running around and you're fishing,
right,
everybody starts catching them at a certain time of the day. And those are just little things that I've observed. And I'm I was always running, like in the five fish limit, I was always running and speeding because you don't know when you're going to catch. You don't know if to catch them. You're just like, oh man, this place is tough. But you settle down, you catch fish, and you come in and you feel good about it because you yell at me or whatever it is. But here it's like, man, it takes a scorecard. You feel like you've done something. And 2 pound minimum now. This is another thing people don't realize. They go, oh man, you guys catch a little bass. Yeah, 1 pound, right? 1 pounder is a little bass. But when you make it a 2 pounder, you know how many 18, 19 pound bags I've had 1.5 pounders in, but I can 6 and 5, or you know what I mean? Like it's crazy because especially you look at your bags where you're anchored with some big fish, you might have several that are under 2 pounds in there. A couple anyway. And now it's like, man, I got a 115 doesn't count for nothing, but it was dang. Pool cast, get the frog winter out, got that fish, whatever. I really doesn't even count for nothing. I've had a lot of those just under the weight this year. It's just one of those years, but but yeah, there's both ways. I'm not going to take away from anybody. There are definitely guys that can.
Yeah, but like you said, how many times do you have, I caught a 6 and a 5 and I put that in the bag, but then there's also, there's a 1.5 pound and a 2 pounder and this, and a 3 pound sitting in there, where you don't have everything. And then you look at the way, like you said, I think the pressure is such a big deal with, the Pro Tour, like you're talking about, the Bass Pro Tour, where, like you said, yeah, you can sit out there and catch 5 fish and go, yeah, I caught, 20 pounds today. I had all 4 pounders in my bag, or maybe some big kicker or something like that. But you ended up in 15th, 20th place because, some guy went out there and just got in him and torched up 2.5, 3 pounders all, it's like, nah. That is such a high pressure thing because that, it just changes the game that way.
And I don't know how
they're more of a hybrid. So they have what the first two is. So the first 2 days you have qualifying can be from 2 different ways. You can either qualify with numbers or you can qualify with weight. So the top 10 go to fish the final day. But what you have is they use Tourney X, which is basically like the same thing. They, they weigh their fish, they take a picture of it, they submit that, and it's, then they kind of basically guesstimate the weight or give you a weight off of that, and then you go from, you weigh your fish and you go in. Well, the way they have it is that, yeah, 5 guys. So 5 guys qualify through weight, 5 guys qualify through numbers, and then on the last day, everything is blanked, and then they go to just a 5 fish limit for the best 5 wins the tournament. That's how Ken Maw just won he with the Thermalito After Bay. There's a lake, there's some place I know you probably haven't fished that much, or I think you may have fished it once or twice, but that Thermalito After Bay.
At Ford Fairfield, we'll make your ownership experience simple. Our simple price, simple process is designed to save you time by eliminating the back and forth. That means you'll always get our very best, highly competitive offer right up front. No games, no gimmicks. Our goal? To provide you with an exceptional experience. Stop by or book your appointment today. Ford Fairfield, simple price, simple process.
Yeah, they had a tournament there. Ken Maw ended up winning that thing, and it's a real interesting way to fish. And if you get a chance, you can watch them. It's a nice hybrid way they do it. Like you're talking about, I actually like that little suggestion you put out there. Instead of being every fish counts, it's like maybe only your top 10 count. That's a pretty good. That would be a pretty interesting little twist on that, to where, maybe you don't get buried so much. It gives you a chance to come back, and and I think that would almost give it a hybrid kind of situation where the guys that do sit down, take their time and fish, and catch 5 good ones, compared to the guys who are just out there, hey, I got into a school and I wrecked 35 fish. That is a nice little hybrid action right there.
I mean, it's kind of like hunting. Like, you're going to be patient. You're going to wait until that big buck comes by, or you're just going to blast every doe you see. You know what I mean? So
it's California. I'm taking the first one I see.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. It's like, if I could go out there and throw my boom boom swim bait, I know I can catch fish on it just about anywhere because I've done it. But I need time. I need time to make those casts. I need to concentrate on each cast. I need to, think it out. And there's nothing worse than when you get that score tracker update and you're halfway, reeling in a swim bait, and you find out you're 8 pounds behind the cut line or something silly, and you're just like, dang it, I'm gonna have to pick up a wacky rig, or
Yeah. Well, and that's
the
thing. But like you say, that's that option right there. Is back there, and I'm not saying everywhere back there's like this, but you're gonna put that swim bait down, because out here, let's say you were on Clear Lake and you're like, I'm 8 pounds down, it's like, I'm gonna keep chucking this swim bait because I know that there's 9 pounders,
well, yeah, and that's everywhere. True too. But
back there, you're talking about,
Clear Lake's a super special lake. Like, I would play my game with a swim bait and not even worry about it, because I know at the end you'd have enough weight.
Right, exactly.
There are some lakes where it's not, you can get away with it, but man, for the most part, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you're fishing for, you're fishing for 3.5 and 4 pounders, and that's, and that's going to be a good quality fish that, you stick a 4 pounder in a boat and you're like, I just made a move. Because I've seen it so many times on those shows, where you've done that. I've watched you do it. It's like, 4 pounder, on the frog, and it's like, that's a big move right there, and it is. You'll move up that board quick, but at the same time, if you're not targeting that 1.5 to 2 pounder on a regular basis, those guys are just, it's like they're just pouring it on and pouring it on.
Yeah, well, that's why it is now a 2 pound minimum, but still, even 2 to 2.5. I mean, now the cup events will still be a 1 pound, but again, cup events, we get no practice. We don't know where we're going. We show up completely blind. They take us to a section of some random lake, and this is your territory. So I kind of like that, and I kind of wish, and I'm not trying to harp on anything, but I just kind of wish that we did away with practice altogether. And then that way, as soon as the lake's announced, just can't fish it. I mean, it would suck for me, like I said, if we go to my lake, but I got plenty of other lakes I'll go fish. But get the whole, I mean, no practice, show up, and then I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'd win more.
Yeah, but I mean, that's that's the whole thing. Like here, you talked about the Apex. Well, the Apex does, what they do is they do a 30-day off limits, and you know as well as I do that 30 days is an atrocious amount of time for things to change. If you're, if let's say they told you, there's a Lake Dardanelle tournament. So you're okay. I have that. So I have basically I can talk and get all the information I need to do and fish it and pre-fish, blah, blah, blah. But I got 30 days before that event that I can't see it. And then I only get a half hour running around once it opens, once they're like, okay, tournament day is here. You go out for a half hour, get that run around, and then go out and fish that. Now, you can't tell me that in 30 days, that wouldn't be enough time for you to, that's enough time for everything to change that you would have learned,
Everything.
everything. I mean, it can change.
What a guy would do, and this is why I believe Jacob Wheeler is so good, is he goes before those off limits, and he just graphs and he studies and he marks every single little detail of the lake, and pays attention to where the grass may be and where it may be in a month. I mean, he's definitely doing more homework and working harder than anybody else, and that's why he's dominating. People will say what they want to say, but in my opinion, that dude is just the hardest worker and the best fisherman right now.
Well,
so I think
there's a lot of it is.
If there was a 30-day off limits, you don't want to go out there and start throwing a bait that you think you're going to catch them on 30, because it will change. 100% will not be that bite. I mean, it may get better, but it most likely isn't going to be there. But you do want to learn the habitat, learn the structure, learn, what boat docks have what on them. You can find the brush piles in front of them. There's a lot of things you can do if you have the time to pre-practice.
Right.
I think years ago, if I was smarter, I'd have done that more. But now with a family and, my kids fishing youth leagues, I got my other son who's going to be playing football. I mean, I'm going to be a dad first. I mean,
so you're telling me that so what you're telling me is you becoming a parent has made you dumber? Is that what you just said?
It's not making me dumber. It's making me be a better parent.
Oh, okay.
Putting kids first. Yeah. No, I'm gonna keep fishing, but I've never been a guy to pre-practice either. I usually just used whatever practice available. I feel like I've done this for 18 years. 16 years bass, and then 3 years with it. Yeah, it was 2 years with this. So yeah, 18 years. So I feel like I've been to most lakes to the point where, or most parts of the region of the country,
right,
to where I think I could figure it out quickly.
Well, and that's it's funny you say that, because in those cup events, they take you to these little lakes and they put you nowhere, and they're just like, I've never seen this lake before. I think to me, that's one of the things that I really, the Apex does that here. They take you to
thermally like, when have I ever bass fished in thermal? I've never bass fished there, but I've definitely went and done salmon in the river.
Well, they weren't in the river.
Cool.
They weren't. That's the whole thing. They weren't in the river. They were actually in the after bay. They were in the lake right above the hole there. Yeah, they were in that lake.
How many? That's so cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and before that, they were at Lake Almanor. They were at Lake Comanche. They were the John Day River up in up in Oregon, up by the Columbia. I mean, you look at that and you go, how is it that they're putting on a pro event? And mind you, there are 32 boats, so there is that difference. I think that's what those cups really are still, is the smaller fields. But when I look at that, you just go, that really, and mind you, here's Thermalito After Bay, and it's 30 days off limits. So who the heck, first of all, you've probably never fished there, or, if you have, it was a long time ago. And two, now you got a 30 days off limits. So anything you do learn is going to be, so slim, so little to grasp onto. And you go to fish that. Well, you can't tell me that doesn't bring out the best. You're going to have to learn how to be a really good fisherman, or you're going to have to be a really good fisherman to figure that out. And it's going to make the cream rise to the top every time, or it's going to make those guys work really hard. When I see that back east, and that's one of the things that I've talked about on these shows is they get so stuck on going to the same bodies of water, over and over and over. And it's like, God, there are so many bodies of water in this country, so many different places to go. It's like, take these guys who are, and I'm not saying you're claiming you guys are the best out there, that you're sitting at the top and fishing at the level you're fishing at because you're the best. Take them someplace and let them prove it. Take them someplace and say, hey, you know what? We're going to come to your waterway where nobody's hardly ever heard of, and we're going to put the best guys we can on your body of water and show you what they can actually do and why they are the best. I think that's just great.
I agree. I mean, that's what I love about the cup events. And I think even with our field that we have right now on the Bass Pro Tour, even with 80, only 40 of us fish each day, we could do that. And we've done that. I mean, we did go to a couple lakes that were smaller, but I think, there's no reason for us to go back up to St. Clair where we've gone for years and years. I mean, there's a lot of smaller lakes that we can go to.
Well, yeah, and that's especially the way Bassmaster's not going to be able to do that. They got 100 something boats every tournament, and they're not going to break that down, and they're not going to, they're not going to change their style that much. They can't. It just
and a lot of the cities are paying a fortune to have them come. There's a big, there's that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're coming in there and they're bringing a giant revenue stream when they come. Even today with the way the world's working right now, it's like they're still bringing big money. It's ridiculous what they're bringing in there. But that's the whole thing, is that these cities are noticing that, and that's a great thing. But I think one of the things that you talk about right there, the cities are paying them to come there, but when you guys bring a cup event to a smaller town like that, how much more impact do you really think that has on that small town? That small town just got a huge amount of money coming into it, and not just from you guys, but from the people coming to watch. I mean, huge amounts of money just rolled in there. For them, it doesn't have to be millions. I mean, it can be
once it gets
thousands.
Once it gets aired is when it gets the notoriety, because the cup events, they're so secretive, they won't tell people we're there. But yeah, exactly. I mean, they I can't think of any names off the top of my head right now, but these little lakes we go to in those cup events, man, some of them are phenomenal. What gets me is we'll have like 4 lakes we might fish, and I always end up with the lake that's probably the least best.
You always end up on the worst section. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Pretty much.
You got the section that don't worry, it's all just sand, and there's a stick out there somewhere. You could go catch some fish.
There's a limit on that stick.
Yeah, exactly. That stick's just out of your reach, But no, I mean, I think that's awesome stuff. When you're talking about what this does for those small towns, and what it does for a lot of these places, taking those big, big names to those small lakes. It does, like you said, it airs, and people are like, hey, I'm gonna go check that lake out. That was pretty awesome. And now I know how to fish it, because Fred Roumbanis went up there and just destroyed him on a frog, or just destroyed him on whatever. Let's go up there and check that out. I mean, that guy just showed me what to do. So I mean, it's impressive that way. And that's we talk about the different things, and I do want to talk a little bit about some of the new, we just got at ICAST, that was still going on. So what's some of the new stuff coming out? I know you have a couple things. I think I saw you with a couple things coming from IMA, and a couple things. What's some new stuff coming out right now? I mean, talk about some of the new things that guys should be looking for, and what you saw at ICAST that you're just like, dude, you got to check this out.
Well, one of the baits that IMA has, I mean, obviously it's that glide fluke, which is a really cool glide bait, but it's a bait you can really burn. A lot of glide baits are meant to fish nice and slow and use your handle to adjust it. Well, the glide fluke, it's been out a little bit, but it's like we're getting a lot of notoriety on it right now. So that glide fluke is something definitely you guys want to take a look at. The 178 size is my favorite. But anyway, I came out with a swim jig. I actually did this jig about 16 years ago, another company, and things didn't really work out, but I brought it back to life, and we added a Hayabusa hook to it, the premier Japanese hook, probably, in my opinion, the best hooks out there. We added that to it, and it really shakes. So you can add any trailer to it, and you're gonna get a little extra action out of it, but it planes well. The jig, they're jigs that kind of look like it, but if you put them on their back, they sit upright. This thing will stay horizontal, and that's what you want in a swim jig. You want it to come in, you want the planes horizontally. You don't want it. It's not a jig you're working on the bottom or anything like that. So we brought that back, and with 2020 being a gangster of a year with the COVID and everything else, we kind of brought it back as a mob scene, the 20s, early 20 era with the gangsters. So mobsters and gangsters. So it's called the OG Gangster Swim Jig by Stanford Baits.
Okay.
Nothing really new on my frog. It's the same frog. We got the popping version we did last year.
How did I got to stop you right there, because I don't want to say I made a mistake, but I accidentally discovered that you had a popping frog in that, because I've actually really liked the Stanford frog. That frog has been, I've used the heck out of it this year, and I've done really well with it. And I wasn't
Oh,
losing a
nice.
lot of fish. I was I've been catching a lot of them. I've had, a couple short strikes, but nothing like, when they hit it, they're eating it. But I accidentally hooked into that popping frog. Now, as far as popping frogs go, I don't know that it's the best popper out there exactly, because it's pretty small. But
Yep.
tell me a little bit about how you fish that differently, because that popping frog. I mean, it's a good frog, and I've caught fish on it, but it's not exactly what you think about when you see some of the other frogs out
Well,
there.
we added a pencil popper mouth to it. It's supposed to, when you snap it, a hard snap sprays water like a pencil popper. It's not so much like a bluefin frog, like a pop in, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a bluefin frog, but it also walks tighter, and it's more of a finesse deal. So I like that frog, open water, lay down, skipping up underneath cover, boat docks. It's not something I'm going to throw over mats or lily pads, because anytime you have a popping mouth, it will catch on
It's
on
horrible.
grass. So for me, it's more of like the open water scenario frog. And I'll be honest with you, I will. I do. I always tweak things a little bit. I change the hooks out. I put a Gamakatsu 3/0 in the back.
Okay.
It just, to me, seems like the best hook for that frog. It does come with a Mustad 3/0, but they're just a little bit tight to the bait. It works fine. I mean, it's not going to probably bother anybody but me. But yeah,
it's definitely no, you're right. I mean, you're spot on with that, because I do this. I fish frogs a lot, and I mean a lot. And when I started getting into those, I'm always looking for that little advantage or whatever. And I started changing them out or bending them out a little bit or tweaking them, and trying to find that right thing. I tried to throw that popping frog, it's like, it's on, I'm going to throw it over some grass. Horrible in the grass, not going to work. I'm just telling you right now. But if you change back over to the other one that thing's great in the grass. But I do like that frog over, on I love that frog in open water. I've done great on Clear Lake with it. I've caught some just toads on it, and it hooks up well if you spread those legs, the hooks a little bit and bend them up just a hair. So no, that's a great. I think
that's
frogs
right.
are
I
great.
just swap them out.
Yeah, I mean,
It's an open water frog. It's not a cover. It's not a vegetation frog. Let's just leave it at that.
Definitely not that. I learned that one the hard way. And it does pop.
But I've had guys.
You have to be very.
Pictures of.
Yeah.
What's that?
I got plenty of those for you. No problem.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's I've had a lot of giant bass get text my way up to 13 pounds calling that popping frog with no modifications to it. So, that's pretty cool. That's always the cool thing when someone says, "Man, I caught my biggest fish." And it probably at that size probably be the biggest fish of their life. I mean, I know a long time ago, way back in the day, I caught a 13 on the Delta, and I've yet to break it. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a fun.
I miss fishing the Delta. I hope it stays amazing.
Well, we'll let you back in. You can come back in the state anytime you want. We'll let you over here. You can come fish.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I'll bring you back. I'll help you with those videos. No problem. You come on out. We'll get some stuff done. Well, heck, what the hell? I'll come your way too. It's all good. It's
you just come on out here.
In Arkansas. And
I'll
check
show you what tough fishing's like.
Yeah, exactly. I've been to Tennessee to Percy Priest in like February. It's not fun. I mean, you catch like one fish and you're like, and the day is good again. So
see, what's crazy is February here on Lake Darnell's when you want to come. I mean, I can drop power poles down and catch 60 fish migrating in one area on a swim bait. May catch a 7-pounder, but it's fun.
Now, let me ask you this: when you compared to, you talk about the swim bait so much, and it's one of your favorite things to do. I know it. But when you talk about the swim bait here and you talk about the swim bait there, are you making any modifications? Are you changing colors? What are you doing differently? Compared to fishing a Clear Lake or the Delta, and then fishing, Dardanelle or some of those lakes back there, because it can't be the same. Just pick it up out of the package and throw it kind of thing, is it?
No. I mean, as far as like, I actually developed some colors. I live on a dirty water river, and so I came out with some June bugs and some black and blue. Just like colors that work good in dirty water swim baits. We came out with an Avery Day, which is like green pumpkin chartreuse stripe down the side and a watermelon bottom. Avery's my son's name, so we just we named it after him. But I mean, like, we made some colors that work better in these stained, not so much like after a rainflow water gets dirty, because then I feel like you need your brighter colors. I've played with bubble gums and stuff like that, but we've we've developed colors that work good in dirty water year-round conditions. And and I use the weedless styles, and like for here, Darnell, there's a couple road beds and strip hits and stuff like that where I'll throw a treble hook. And I did catch 1 7-pounder this year using my line through swim bait over a road bed. But here you're fishing mostly, really, really skinny water, less than a foot, like we talked about earlier. And so I like throwing my 4-inch, actually weedless swim bait, and I use a 7/0 958 Hayabusa 1/4 ounce swim bait hook on it, and I changed the spring out. I actually put one of those owner larges on there, twist that in the nose, 20 pounds straight fluoro, and just bomb it as far back as I can in some of these pockets and just reel it in at a pretty good moderate speed using an 8-foot. Right now I got a Dobbins signature rod, swim bait rod. It works perfect. It's an 8-footer, and it's a 3-power, but it's actually the same blank as this 5-power CB series and the Champion series. So it's cranking, your DD22 or whatever your 10XD rod, and it just allows you to get those long casts and gives you leverage and put good hookups. And then I'll even put it on a high speed reel, so you don't think of throwing swim bait on an 8-to-1. Well, here you do. You burn, not necessarily burn it, but you want to keep up with them. Shallow water bass, grab your bait and they run towards you so much faster than you can reel 7-to-1. So you want to be able to pick up that line, and a longer rod will allow you to get that hookup. So there's a little bit of science behind it as far as that.
Yeah. So you're not really fishing it like a traditional swim bait like we do. I mean, you're not out here, put it on the bottom, let it sit, and then just barely bringing it across. I mean, you're like you said, you're fishing a foot to 4 feet of water. You're basically burning it through most of it. Because when I think about,
it would be something like you throw a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, but it's going to be way more weedless. I mean, you're not going to pick up the grass on it like you would anything else. As a matter of fact, there was I jumped in one of them pro-ams here, local Get 5 pro-am when I first came on swim bait, and I sat in a pretty big community hole, and I threw nothing but my June bug swim bait, knowing I was the only one with it anyway. And I was probably catching 5-to-1 on everybody else, and they were all throwing chatterbaits. And at the end of the day, one of the co-anglers said, "Man, what are you throwing?" And I showed him. He's like, "Dude." That was awesome. I finished 7th. I did have the winning fish on twice. I dumped him with the boat, but other than that, man, it was fun, and got to really see the difference between the top guys here throwing their bladed jigs versus me throwing a weedless swim bait, and that was a really cool experience. But out west, I mean, dude, I get it. You're doing slow turn,
right?
The handle, you're counting down, you're counting the pebbles, this, that, whatever. I've always been a guy that likes to keep it coming, and more of a subsurface, not just where you would like the depth you suspend a jerk bait or something. I like to keep my baits in those zones and let fish come up and grab the swim bait more than anything.
I mean,
but
we're fishing, right? Well, we're fishing for, we're throwing that thing out there, and we want it to look, as much like the kokanee, the salmon, the trout, whatever's in the waterway. That's what we're kind of focusing on, shad here and there, things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I have no idea what you're actually trying to make it look like, because a June bug swim bait doesn't make sense.
It's
never seen a purple. I've never seen a purple fish except for maybe a bluegill. I guess you could say there's some purple and bluegill and stuff. So
in a way, a bluegill does have a little purple in it, but it's more of just something they pick
color.
up in that dirtier water. And
and it's the vibration.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the concept of it. It's a great concept. I just, when you talk about fishing out here in the West, and you talk about fishing what we're fishing, Shastas and Orvilles, Clear Lakes, things like that. I mean, we're being pretty specific with what we're trying to, match the hatch, and, in a foot of water or 2 feet of water, throwing a June bug swim bait, just, it kind of goes against everything. But that's some of that, like you're talking about, the difference between out west and back there. It's impressive. There is.
Yeah, it's definitely a different deal.
Yeah.
And that gets back to where we started, how different it is than out west, But at the same time, you being able to, or guys out west being able to finesse up or really match the bait fish in the hatch, like you said,
right?
It gives them that edge over guys that might throw a big cherry red worm all the time.
Right.
You're like, dude, I don't think that's very natural. Let me try this. And sometimes it works better, but man, if I get on that.
you say that it might, it might work better that you match that natural, that natural look. But when you're talking about that kind of colored water or that stained water, and you're not talking about a bunch of clear, I mean, it's just, it throw that out the window, right?
Right. I mean, here's the thing though, a bait fish is a bait fish, whether it's in clear water or dirty water, it doesn't change much look. I mean, it's just trying to get those fish to react on what you're throwing. And they don't necessarily see as good as they would in clear water, but they use all their other senses, their vibration. So color really isn't that big of a factor when they're going to be using more of their lateral line to feel and
right.
So therefore the vibration, and that's why, I mean, a bladed jig is such a dangerous bait, and my weedless swim bait's got so much shake to it. I think it really picks them up, because I've seen guys go around throwing, nothing against the dippers and stuff, but they're not getting near the bites I'm getting. You know what I mean? They're just not, the bait's not, it doesn't have the same shake. It doesn't have the vibration.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, that's all.
Now you get the clear water. You get
right.
Yeah, you get clear water.
We get times when it's not clear out here. You know that. I mean, the Delta's not always a clear body of water. The Clear Lake's not always clear. That's for sure. And that makes a difference, talking about using that vibration and those, using that bladed jig, using some of those other things to really focus on catching more fish that way. It's a great, it's a great trend. It's a great comparison, between the two waters back there and here. If you start getting dirty water, go to something that's going to be a little more vibration, stay away from maybe the look of it and go, change up a little bit like that.
I would say if a guy wanted to try my June bug, I would go into Rodman Slough after a big rain. If you guys get rain, if you could get some rain, go to Rodman Slough with that June bug. You'll probably get some fish. Heck, stay right under the bridge and just fire it in the same spot about 20 times, get them fired up and go.
All right.
Give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Yeah. Hey, if we get water, I'm in. I'm telling you right now. I'll tell you what Clear Lake looks like. Clear Lake looks like it's covered in, it's that blue algae bloom came up. And I mean, I've seen some, it's just horrible. I mean, it's like 8 or 9 feet down, and it's covered in that algae, and it is, we're my partner and I are actually trying to check to see where we can launch, because we were talking about going this weekend fishing somewhere, and it's just like, we have to check everywhere. I mean, you can't launch it. I don't think you can launch at Orville. We're going to check there. And when you're talking about having a hard time launching at Shasta, having a hard time launching at Orville, you think about, we're having a hard time launching at Clear Lake because, where do you launch? And when you do, I mean, I think Redbud's open, but it's like, 3 or 4 inches of water you got to launch into, and then try to, trim everything up, float it out, and then get out there.
Oh gosh, that's
brutal,
man. I hate that.
Yeah, I hate that. There's a lot of people fishing the Delta. A lot of people. So
really, I mean that would be the only stable water, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Thermally, yeah. The afterbay actually went up. So I mean, there's a lot of different. Fish. I mean, you're just gonna have to fish. Be a little more, I don't know, choosy, I guess. But that's definitely the one thing back there you guys do not have is a lack of water. It rains every third day or something out there.
We've had some good rain. I hate to say it. I mean, it's
Tennessee just has a bunch of flooding and everything, so they got to send some water some way. Maybe we need to build a big water thing or something. The pipeline that carries water out west.
Dude, that's what they need to do. They need to figure something out.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So hey, well, Fred, I think we can. We've got a good show here, man, and we talk a lot about different fish.
Man, I appreciate it. Thanks,
no, I appreciate you coming on, dude. It was super fun. We'll see what happens in the middle there. We had a little bit of cutout. Okay. I hope this came out pretty good. And everybody got to listen to it. I'll fix it as best I can for you guys. Thanks for tuning in tonight and listening to a couple of guys that are just we're out here, we're talking about fishing, and that's what we're trying to make this show, help you learn a little bit more about fishing, make you a better fisherman here. That's what the Band Pod's all about. But sometimes it's just nice to kick back with an old friend and talk about some fishing on the air. And because I'll tell you what, Fred's one heck of a guy, man. And listening to him now talk about his kids and the way they're coming up in this sport and the way that playing some other stuff, and it's great to see. I don't ever think of him as that old, but to have a couple kids like this, but it is tough to it is fun to hear it. And he's one of those true great ambassadors for this sport, and he loves what he does. So Fred, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, man. And we'll talk again, I'm sure. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. And big shout out to Mark Lassane. Known him a long time, and great guy. You guys got awesome thing going there. And again, congratulations, Ken Maw, for winning the Apex on the Thermalito Afterbay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Hey, well, thanks again, Brad. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. I do have Ken Maw coming on. We're going to actually put him on the Wired for Bass episode. So that will be on our video one. So yeah, check that out. And again, thanks for Fred for tuning in. All right. Y'all have a good night.